fit and function needs are, so we can start building that into the next generation of headsets.
Perfect. Okay, Douglas.
Thank you. We are a Miami-based company, Xennial Digital, and we focus on building VR and AR enterprise solutions. And the biggest growing industry for us right now is the aviation industry. More than 50% of our business comes from aviation, very focused on the building simulators for mechanics. No, nothing for pilots, mechanics.
Is that focus on military or commercial?
Commercial only.
Commercial aviation. Okay.
Okay, so, these are three very highly specialized industries, right, that we've all seen. There's certain industries that are fast-moving adopters of the technology, and these three are definitely fast-moving adopters. So, over the past couple weeks, I've been doing a podcast for the VRARA Association, focusing on the question, are we at the tipping point for XR, right? Using Malcolm Gladwell's analogy of the tipping point is that point where something spreads like wildfire. So with that theme in mind, what we want to do today is ask a couple of questions to try to get to the answer of, are we at the tipping point, okay? So first question, and I'm going to ask everyone to give a quick answer on this. What is the single biggest technology advancement or development that you are seeing that's driving adoption of XR? The single biggest technology advancement or development that you're seeing drive adoption. Let's start with Jude.
So in medical, it's all in the hands, the eyes, the head, the heart, and anything that advances that technology. Today we've got haptic gloves and we've got goggles. Anybody out there that is a medic or a surgeon knows that that technology is not quite there yet. It's good for performing basic tasks, training basic tasks, but when you're getting into something that is as close to replicating the human body as possible, what I'm hearing, I'm not a medic myself, but what I'm hearing is that we're not quite there yet. So anything that goes beyond your normal mannequin, that's a piece of plastic with instrumentation inside of it, anything that promotes realism is something that on our side, as far as requirements and the government goes, we're looking for that.
All right, so what I'm hearing you say is that you're seeing advancements in haptic and other ancillary technologies besides just the headwear or the devices. That's actually driving more usage in the healthcare industry.
So the data is getting better.
Okay.
Lots of data out there, and it's continuing to roll in. But again, it comes down to how does it feel? Is it what I am used to when I touch a real person, or I'm in surgery, or I'm rendering aid on the battlefield? How does it compare?
Okay.
And I think there's still a gap right now.
There's a gap, but it's coming, right? Miguel.
Yes, I would say that is the variety and cost of the newest headsets. I think that's going to drive mass adoption, probably not as large as like the video game consoles, but enough for sustaining the industry and to have more customers.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the recent price reductions in the devices is causing more people to invest and buy. Is that
That's
right?
one thing, and the other is the quality of the devices.
Quality.
Yes, because I have seen how it has evolved, and now it's very convincing without having a big computer.
Okay.
Beside.
All right, Dano.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things, not a specific technology, but I think with spatial computing, creating input modalities that are more intuitive and native to how we interact in the real world. So if you look at generations of people, who have grown up using a mouse and a 2D desktop metaphor on a computer, not really an intuitive way to interact with data. With immersive headsets and spatial computing, we're allowing people to interact with digital assets, people information systems required to do their job in a way they would if it was a practical or physical aspect.
Okay, and the one thing I want to remind everyone, okay, just a reminder, I know we all get focused on headsets, but XR is much bigger than head-mounted displays. XR includes your phones, it includes these wonderful 3D displays that we're seeing from companies like Leah and Looking Glass Factory and Magnetic, right? But I know a lot of times when we talk about XR, we immediately go to headsets, especially the Magic Leap guys. And that's okay. That's okay. Miguel, Douglas, sorry. What do you think the latest technology advancements are?
So I would say there's two things on our case: hand tracking, because it's the way in which we naturally interact with the physical world. So we're seeing more mature people coming to VR just because they find it easier to use because of hand tracking. The second thing, AI. I think AI is going to be a key piece of how we integrate XR and be able to scale that technology. So I would say both of those pieces for us are what's driving adoption rate.
All right, 4 different responses, all of them absolutely valid. Okay, next question. What are the biggest hurdles or challenges that you are seeing that still need to be overcome to truly scale? What are the biggest challenges that we need to overcome? And these don't have to be technology challenges, by the way, okay?
So, again, from the government's perspective, we like technology, we need technology, and like these gentlemen here, please continue. But when you're looking at what we put out there in terms of a request for a proposal or a requirement, don't just throw technology at it for the sake of saying, hey, here's the latest XR, VRARA, or whatever it is. Go research that requirement and target what your technology brings to that requirement. And in doing that, I'm giving you some free consulting here. You'll have a much better chance.
Okay, so let me try to frame that back into, so from an acquisitions perspective, one of the hurdles I think you're seeing is that organizations need to be able to articulate how they're solving the problem, not just talk about the technology.
I'll read a proposal that's got some dynamite technology, but it misses the target of the requirement. And then you're SOL.
Well, and I, look, guys, I think that's valid across industries, right? The tech is so exciting, everybody gets enamored of the tech, but the dollars that are getting spent need to tie to a result, a business outcome, okay? Thanks, Jude. Miguel?
I would say the content creation, because it's not the same thing that as doing a medical simulator and doing a flight simulator for VR. And it's not yet, there are people trying to do that, but it's not like the PowerPoint for creating all kind of VR content. So that's where I think it's going to be difficult to scale at that level, because there are many verticals over there.
Okay, so what you're saying is, one of the biggest hurdles that you're seeing is the cost of content creation.
Yes.
So AI tools, automated content creation might help that, huh?
I think it's part of the formula, but there are other things, because at the end you need to craft something manually.
Yeah.
Manually.
Okay. And I think a lot of people agree, like the cost of content creation is a significant cost. I mean, headset technology prices are going down, content development costs are going up, okay? Dano,
Yeah.
what's the hurdles?
All right, so I will focus on headset hardware just for a second.
Okay.
And I think that there's 3 aspects that are holding back the scaled adoption of spatial computing. It's connectivity, it's battery life. You have to be able to support at least a full shift if you're focusing on frontline workers. And again, I agree with lowering the barrier of entry for content and experience creation in order to have subject matter experts do it. But the real thing holding it back is really from the business side. We have to be able to demonstrate how we're going to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of processes, not just enamor them with how shiny the technology is.
Okay, great answer.
Sorry, you need the microphone.
I would say a very clear path to ROI. I think that's what every company wants to look at, is how do we get our return on investment. From our perspective, because we're building Gulfstreams, Boeings, is getting access to the CAD files. So actually the IP protection from some of these companies becomes a challenge to us in terms of scaling.
Okay.
All right, so the proven return on investment to customers, if they're gonna buy something, what's the ROI to them? Now, a lot of organizations like to build the cost of building that unique content into their solution. That's also a hurdle, right? Because now the customer's like, wait a minute, I gotta pay to have all this content created? Okay, so organizations that are building content, that are getting ahead of the curve and investing and creating training content, then all of a sudden they can offer a subscription-based solution, right? So I think I agree with you, it's a big hurdle. But a lot of people are working on this, and generative AI, I think, is gonna have a big role in helping create generic content. Okay, great. Once again, four different perspectives. Okay, third question. How will XR technology provide competitive advantages to organizations? And now you can put this in your own organization or in general. How will XR technology provide competitive advantages to organizations that are looking to use XR?
So for me, it gives me a diversity of solutions. I put a request for proposal out there for a capability, and if there's diversity in the solutions, the capability is going to match that diversity. And I think in terms of cost, schedule, performance, we will come out better. And again, with a better capability, a better life cycle cost, all those things that we consider when we're acquiring the system.
Okay, so from the Defense Health Agency perspective, you represent the users, right? You represent the users. They tell you, hey, we need this, and then your organization goes out and finds what vendors can make that. So let's look at the user perspective, right? Let's look at it from the medical perspective. How do you measure benefit in healthcare?
So you're a good straight man, John. I was just about to say, we've been looking at ROI, but on the government, the military side, it's not the same as on commercial side, where you're looking at incidences of malpractice and reducing those, things along that nature. And how do you put a dollar figure on human life? So ROI for us ends up not being in terms of dollars, but in terms of a little more subjective things, better outcomes, better patient satisfaction that you can easily find out. So those are the kind of where we're going now. We're also building measures of performance and measures of effectiveness into the simulators we're acquiring now. You'll see those in our requirements documents, because we need that data to continue to prove that simulation is worth the money.
So it also sounds like to me that there's an opportunity then for companies that want to bid on government healthcare programs, that it would be good advice to spend time understanding the end users, so that in their responses they can articulate how they can meet not just the requirements, but the benefits that the end user is looking for.
That's always the case.
Yeah, because like you said, malpractice and return to OR, that's different for the military, right? Okay, thanks Jude, appreciate it. Miguel?
I would say something similar, because at the end you can give access to more people. It's not only the quality of the training, but also giving access to more people to be trained. So in the case of space, instead of training hundreds of astronauts per year, you could be training 10,000 or more using VR.
Okay.
And only giving the access to the actual equipment at the end for the best of those.
So Miguel, what you're saying is that XR technology provides the ability for space organizations operating in the space industry to train more people, increase the velocity and the number of people getting trained. Right. Okay. Absolutely. And space is just such an exciting new frontier. But I mean, there's so many new companies that don't have a lot of the baggage that the existing space companies have. They're more open to using XR technologies. Would you agree?
Yes, I think it's inspiring for new generations, for everybody, but also for companies to adopt what is being approved by very specialized cases like going to space.
Okay, excellent. Okay, Dano.
Yeah, I'm following the trend. I think one of the thing that's driving a competitive advantage for companies who are embracing XR for training is flattening the training curve. I remember in the Army, you have soldiers that go to school for months to learn how to maintain certain pieces of equipment. They show up to a unit and it's not the equipment that they were trained on. So all of the training and skills, specific skills they acquired, require additional training on board. So by flattening that curve, by being able to provide access to expertise and guide people in an operational environment, not to work in a classroom, but to work in the environment where they actually will be operational, I think is one of the key advantages.
All right, flattening the curve. I love it. Okay, Douglas.
I'm gonna say three things that we're facing, that we are understanding in terms of the benefits and competitive advantages. So the first one is that reducing, which goes to Jude's point, we're reducing the risk of injury to humans, right? So that's a really key point there. The second piece is we're also reducing the risk of damage, especially when it comes to aircraft that are 80 and hundreds of millions of dollars, and you have a new trainee, you don't want them to back the aircraft into a hangar, right? And then I think the third piece, it's exactly to the other point around accelerating people from the perspective of being going into a productivity role faster. So one quick example, it's we're actually training people that tow the aircraft into the hangars with VR, it's reducing by 3 months how fast we can bring in people into a productive role from that perspective.
All right. You know, you can tell that Douglas is clearly focusing on the aviation sector, that Miguel's clearly focused on space, and that Jude is in healthcare, right? Because look, every industry, they're solving different problems using the same technology, right? And that's the beauty of this. So now, let's bring this to a kind of final question. Gentlemen, do you believe that we are at the tipping point for XR using Malcolm Gladwell's definition, and that's the point where something tips and it spreads like wildfire? This is your opinion. Jude?
I don't know that I would call it a tipping point, but it's a continuum.
Okay.
Medical simulation has been around a while, right? And we would go back to the days where we used to put tourniquets on ourselves and we'd make your buddy scream. But I see where we're going in terms of AI and data and digital twins, replicating the human body. And now you're not only in the training domain, but now you're in the actual operational domain as well, to where you can go in and diagnose something and even project it that based on all the data, physiology data, genetic data, you can project that in the future as how they would respond one way or another. And I think that's coming.
Okay.
I don't know that that would be an overnight thing, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, tipping point isn't a exact time, right? But it's like, are we there or are we close? It sounds like you're saying
I
we're
think
close.
we're close.
We're
Yeah,
close.
yeah.
Okay, speaking of putting tourniquets and training, when I was in the Army, my Ranger buddy wanted to practice a tourniquet on me, and he put it around my neck. That wasn't really. What a buddy, huh? No, I'm kidding.
Did you steal his girlfriend? Or
No, but
something?
I do remember in the Army actually training, actually putting tourniquets on each other to practice, right? I mean,
The danger of that is you're never going to tighten it enough to stop blood flow,
Right.
because the person you're doing it to is screaming in pain.
Exactly.
And you haven't gotten near the amount of pressure you need to stop blood flow.
wow. Okay, Miguel, are we at the tipping point for XR?
It's a tricky question because I have seen in past conference that we're going to arrive to that tipping point where it's going to be an exponential road, and then everybody's saying that it's in 5 years, and 2 years later, it's still in 5 years. But I think we are closer. Probably, I will risk to say that it's in a couple of years. We should
Couple
be seeing
years?
something.
Okay, Dano?
Yeah, I don't think we are at the tipping point, but I think we're close. Especially focusing on frontline workers and industry. If we can't create a tool-grade experience and allow them just to be experts at what they do for a living, not to be an expert at what they do and also be a technologist, until we get to that tool-grade experience, we won't be at the tipping point.
Okay, Douglas?
From our perspective, I think it depends on the industry. We're seeing the tipping point on the aviation industry, which is where we're highly focused. Last year, it represented 10% of our business. Now it's over 55% of our business. So I think aviation is seeing the light. We also do other work in other areas, healthcare especially. We're also seeing the largest opportunities we have are in healthcare. So from our point of view, I think it's just based on industry.
Okay, based on industry. Good answers. Now, this is the audience participation point, okay? All right, by show of hands, how many of you think we are at the tipping, we've reached the tipping point for XR? Show of hands. Come on, let's get them up there. Okay? How many of you, I'm gonna ask three, I'm gonna ask, are we there? Are we close? And is it still a long way away? Okay, so how many of you think we're close to the tipping point? Show of hands. About half? Does that feel about like half? How many of you think it's still a long way away for the tipping point? That's the other half. Okay, right? I mean, look, none of us have the answer here. So my perspective. So on my podcast, I've been interviewing so many folks. Amy gave me a really good response. She said yes and no. So you're a consultant, aren't you? And Amy goes yes. Amy said, yes, I think we're the tipping point for certain industries and use cases. No, I don't think we're the tipping point for broad, ubiquitous adoption. Everybody agree with that? Yes. Would everybody agree that's a good? So some industries, aviation, my gosh, we've been working in aviation for 15 years with XR technology. Now they've reached a tipping point where they're ready to run. Healthcare, still got some ways to go, right? Okay.
All right, now this part, we got a couple minutes left. Let's open it up to questions. Ask any of the panelists you want. Yes?
I was going to ask Mr. Tomasello, do you have the capabilities already, and say there's boots on the ground in the field, but not proper positions, and have one back home, help them out, real time?
Telehealth?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're-
Like live.
My office doesn't do that, but that's being done within VHA.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, telehealth, yes? Speak loudly.
There's one comment for what the gentleman Dano said about having the experience. I think a lot of times we miss the point that simulation has to give that individual a significant emotional event. And if it's not touching that individual on an emotional level when they're training, then we're actually missing it. And so, because just like you said, if you're the end user and I'm not feeling it, I'm telling you, I'm an end user, I'm not going to get the training that I should get. But if, just like you said, the moment you touch that individual on an emotional level in some way, shape, or form, regardless if it's old technology or new technology, you've now touched them, and now that training's moving forward. I think that's where the tipping point needs to be, where every technology out there gets everybody physically touched or mentally touched in some way, shape, or form.
All right, so not a question, but a very valid statement. And thank you, absolutely. So when we have an emotional reaction and we know, I mean, everybody here that's been in it, you've had that moment where oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then you've been in experiences where I don't get this. This doesn't make sense to me, right?
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
Okay, fair. Yes, sir, question for who?
Yes, just for the panel.
For the panel.
Something in spirit of the tipping point and competitive advantage. How do you all, for your industries, who should or who is building the ecosystem to integrate XR into the larger organization?
Okay, I'm gonna restate the question. You nod if I got it right. Who is best at building, or who's building the ecosystem for all of XR?
No, who's making the
Integrate
decisions?
XR into the larger IT enterprise of mature.
Okay, who's making the decisions for XR within the
Or who
enterprise?
should.
Or who should? Okay, that's a good question. Jude?
I have no idea.
Miguel?
I will say though that small businesses, shout out to small businesses, are more capable today than they ever have been. Almost all of our contracts being awarded are to small businesses because they can do it and they do it well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think nobody is actually feedback between what is possible with technology and what the ideas that have been already there, but were not possible to be implemented in XR. So that's why it's building the ecosystem.
So considering our audience, this may not be a popular answer, but I think it's definitely not the IT shop. So if you're talking about driving adoption within an organization, it has to be the people that are accountable for the results of whatever process they're working. IT, security, all these folks who have been empowered over the past few decades really need to be enablers to the business side, and those who are accountable for outcomes.
Chief innovation officers, and as well as the leads for the training of teams inside of an organization.
Okay.
And John, you could answer that.
Okay, so I'll answer the question. Look, I've got lots of scars from years of deploying XR, okay? And I say that with pride. Deploying any new technology in any large enterprise is not easy. Okay, so here's what I've learned. Get everybody that's a stakeholder involved. There should not be one decision maker. XR is about business process transformation. You gotta have data. You gotta have the folks that represent the data. You gotta have the end user, representation of who's the end user is. You gotta have your IT, because everybody knows all this technology is great. We take it from the lab and we go over and IT says, that's not touching our corporate network. You're dead in the water, right? That's happened to me. I had a large energy company. We spent years trying to get their VR for their turbines. Went over to IT, they shut it down in 5 hours. Done. Okay? And then of course, executive leadership. Because we're at a point now where, no kidding, this technology can change the trajectory of a business. Every company I've talked to, C-suite says, we know this technology is important, we haven't got it figured out yet, how can you help us? Okay? So the answer is, the IT folks should not be the ones making the decisions. Now here's what I have seen over the last years. Engineers making decisions about tool sets because of what they're comfortable with. Then they do the prototypes, then that's the solution that gets brought to corporate. Now, tools, technologies change. From the time it started 3 years ago as a prototype, the technology's gotten a lot better. But we all know people don't want to change. So sometimes what's going to scale is not the right technology. Okay? So that was a great question, great answers. Let's see here. We are at 2:42. One question. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so this question is for actually Dano.
The Magic Leap guy.
Basically, for all of the XR headset, like which particular industry are you thinking of going into first and foremost? To like automation, like like cars, airplanes.
Okay.
What kind of?
Can I restate your question? So I think your question for Dano, the Magic Leap guy, was which industries are you primarily focusing on?
Yeah, so since I'm defense and public sector, I mean that's really my focus. I think for our company, it's less about the industry and more about the use case. And there's two use cases that I think are absolutely at or super near the tipping point. It's maintenance and repair operations. Whether it be medical equipment, an airframe, or a Humvee.
Yep.
Being able to enable the soldier to keep that equipment up allows them to do their mission. And then, of course, because this is a panel on training, I think doing training as well.
Like just like any kind of training, like
Yeah.
So I think where XR and specifically mixed reality training is best is when you're doing practical training. So being able to augment a physical thing that you're training on, with digital assets.
Well,
So think about this, it just allow me one. What you stated earlier, about a guy being at a location and then he goes somewhere else where it's a completely different set of equipment. If he knows that ahead of time, you can configure the training device in a virtual world, XR, VR, whatever, to be that destination configuration of the equipment. So he's trained, ready, and able to go when he hits the ground wherever he's going.
Yeah, and just one final closeout to that. I think any industry where there's a rapid change in technology, whether it's an engine, whether it's computing components, and the cost associated with having practical training tools, becomes exorbitant over time, or the training becomes outdated. So being able to use XR in those really rapid turn industries will lower the total cost of ownership over time.
right. So as far as I think we also have to keep in mind separate VR, AR, and MR because they all have different strong suits. To do immersive training in VR, but then you want to actually go on a piece of equipment and you need guidance there. You can have a phone, maybe some glasses, maybe audio directions. Okay, so I think the opportunity is for XR to be used across all industries, but the ones that we're focusing on, that we're seeing the biggest adoption, are industries where the equipment is expensive, it's dangerous, or it's hard to service. Agreed? Yep.
and more downtime also.
More downtime, right? Okay. All right, well, that's the end of the panel. I encourage all of you to talk to our experts here on the panel one-on-one, and we hope you have a great concert. Thanks for coming. A concert.